Welcome to Anatomy and Physiology over the summer of 2023, online only. We have a few things we want to go over to introduce you to the course. We're going to be introducing ourselves. The professors for the class are going to be introducing ourselves. We're going to talk about some of the logistics of the class, such as the fact that the way that we want you to approach the class. And then we're going to get into some more details about how we're setting everything up for you. And we'll start to really dive down into what it is that we're expecting out of you from the course. So I'll start off with myself. My name is Professor Maggie Wenzel. Just a little bit about my background. I have been teaching anatomy and physiology for about 20 years. I've been teaching anatomy and physiology at Carthage for about 7 or 8 years. And I really enjoy it. I've been teaching this class for a long time. I think a lot about how to approach the class. My educational background, I have a bachelor's degree from Loyola University in Chicago. I have a PhD in neurobiology from the University of Illinois in Chicago. And I'm married. I've been married to my husband Dave for 17 years, and we have 2 sons who are, as of the time you're going to see this video, I think they're going to be 11 and 14.
Hello, my name is Virginie Bottero, and you already noticed I have a strong accent, so I am from France. I did all my university in France in a tiny university in south of France called Nice-Sophia Antipolis, and I was there up to my PhD. I came to USA for a postdoc in La Jolla in San Diego at the Salk Institute, and after I came to the Midwest. I teach for numerous years in different locations all in the Midwest and all related to biology or health profession, like also MD's students. I am living in Grace Lake with my husband and my son. My son is 14 years old and will be a freshman. At the time we are speaking, he will start his first high school class.
No, that's right, he's taking classes over the summer.
We will now discuss a little bit about this course. This is a difficult class. There is a lot of material to cover, both in the lecture and in the lab. And as it is a summer class, it is a very short amount of time to do all of this. So it would be an advantage not to take other courses at the same time, as you will be very busy with this one.
That's true. We definitely expect you to be focusing on this one. That's one of the advantages that you have, is that you have the ability to just focus on this class. That might be advantageous for some students. Well, Professor Bottero and I have split up the information in such a way that I will be focusing on the lecture portion of the class, and Professor Bottero will be focusing on the lab portion of the class. And we've met quite a bit, though, to decide exactly what kind of material we want to cover. We really want to think about how to give you a fair introduction to anatomy and physiology, and that you get all the material that you want, but that you also are not completely overwhelmed. And so we've had a lot of discussions about exactly how to set up the class and how to present the material. I actually have taught anatomy and physiology online previously, so I know that it can be done. I've also taught this many times in an 8-week timeline, so I have dealt with a truncated timeline before. This is a little bit shorter than that, even though we counted it up. It's about 6 weeks and 2 days, so it really is quite a short timeline. So we weren't able to, for example, start a week on Monday and end it on Sunday. We didn't have this nice way of breaking up the weeks perfectly. We are doing sessions which are variable. Sometimes they'll start on a Tuesday, sometimes they'll start on a Friday. We'll be sure to communicate everything as we go along. You will have all the information at the start of the class, in your syllabus, in various places in Schoology, and each and every week we'll be reminding you exactly what the session looks like and what is being expected that week. It's really important for us for you to feel comfortable and that you understand what's going on each session. But it's not a discrete week, it is a session. As much as we have tried to schedule things well and perfectly, it doesn't really work out for it to be perfect. So, for example, there's going to be one day where you might actually be taking an exam on the 4th of July. I tried not to have that happen, but it just didn't work. So you'll have the option to take that exam July 3rd, but it's possible you might be taking it July 4th, which is not ideal. I get that. So the sessions that we have set up are at the very least 6 days long, and at the most they are 10 days long, just depending on what is expected during that session. So for example, if you have one exam, it'll probably be a 6-day session. But if you're actually expected to take 2 exams, we would be lengthening that session, making sure that you have plenty of days to prepare for both exams. So again, the sessions are a bit awkward. The timing of it just doesn't work out for us to have it nice and perfect and the same every time. I think that you'll understand the reason we're doing that as things go along. We always want to make sure that there are 4 working days. We're setting aside 4 grouped, 4 in a row working days for you to work through 3 folders. 3 folders every time. So 4 working days to work through three folders. But again, these would be various days, and we will be clear what are the days you should be working on the material versus which are the exam days.
So to have this session instead of week will have some advantage. The biggest advantage is flexibility. Some of you might have some week work. Some of you might have some weekend work. Some of you might go camping for 2 or 3 days. So you will be able to adjust the time of work depending on your own schedule. You can work the morning, you can work the evening depending on the student. The important is that all the work in the session will be done, and that it will be done in a specific time frame, because you cannot wait the last week of the course to do all the course at once. The disadvantage of this is that you need to be self-disciplined. You cannot say, oh, I will work just the last day of the session. It will be a lot of material. You will not be able to do it just 1 hour a week at the end. And some of you might have other obligations, so you will have to be careful to put in your schedule your obligation as well as this course.
Yes, that is a good point. So we are going to be giving you a suggested timeline of working days. Again, 4 working days every time, 4 working days in a row. We're going to be suggesting that you front load the work, that you make sure, for example, on day 1 and 2, if at all possible, that you complete all the work, because you never know what's going to happen later in that week. You don't want to be taking shortcuts. We want to make sure that you have plenty of time, that you have a kind of this relaxed situation where if something happens on day 1 and you have to move some things to day 2, then you'll be able to do that. So we recommend, if you're given 4 working days, that you get all of your folders done on day 1 and 2, if at all possible. So the general overview, a session will be 6 to 10 days, 4 working days always, as I said. Exam days will be specifically scheduled. Sometimes they'll be towards the beginning of the session, sometimes towards the end of the session. And if you do have 2 exams during one session, we'll be sure to give you extra study days between to make sure you have plenty of time to study for all of those.
So as we mentioned, you will have different folders or packets. All of this is available on Schoology. So if you go to Schoology, you will see the different session folder. In each one of these session folder, we'll find 3 subfolders that will have 2 subfolders for the lecture and 1 subfolder for the lab part. We try to tie all of them as much as possible, but sometimes there is little difference. An example, the tissue will be more in the labs, while Professor Wenzel will speak about the integumentary system at this time. So you have 6 to 10 days for each session, but now if we look per folder, how many hours of work do you need to do? I will say for the lecture, you will need 10 to 14 hours of work for the 2 lecture folders.
2 folders.
For the 2 lecture
14, yeah.
folders. And you will need 6 to 8 hours for the folder of the lab. So this gives a total of 16 to 22 hours of work on this folder. But don't forget, you will have an exam, so sometimes you will need some review time to be sure that you did acquire all the information. So I will suggest around 10 hours of review or optional work to self-evaluate yourself.
You have to, again, this is the importance of front loading, is that if you come across a topic that's a little unfamiliar, you'll have all that extra time to create a Quizlet, for example, and go over and over and over that Quizlet. So what we're saying then is that per session, and remember the sessions are sometimes only 6 days long, per session you'll probably need between 26 to 32 hours per session. We ask that you are very limited in your outside activities, that your family is supportive, or whoever you're living with, if you are living with other people, that they are very supportive, that they understand, you may very well be doing a lot of this work in your house, but that your family understands that even though you are home, you really need to be focused on this. I recommend actually having a conversation ahead of time. You won't be able to watch your younger brother or sister during this time. If you are taking this class, perhaps you really do want to focus just on this class. We're going to recommend, as I said earlier, I can't say it enough, that you have time management, that you set aside the same time period every single day. Of course, you're going to, it's summertime, so you're going to have camping or other things going on. But for the most part, if you have that, it's always 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's always 5 p.m. till midnight. Whenever you work best, that you always have that time set aside. Highest recommendation that this becomes an integral part of your family structure, that everybody understands. Okay, they're taking their class right now. I do see them physically in the house, but they're not really present to us.
So now perhaps we can discuss what the student will find in each one of these folders for the lecture and for the labs.
Let's do that. I'm guessing that you're very curious about these folders we keep discussing. To emphasize, just to repeat, you're going to have 3 folders for each session. Each 4-day working period, you're going to be working your way through 3 folders, 2 lectures and 1 lab. So I'm going to talk about what the lecture packets are like. First of all, you're going to be given a reading assignment out of the textbook. You don't necessarily have to purchase the textbook, but this would be helpful. I don't recommend that students spend a lot of time just reading the whole thing through, all 20 pages right in a row, but I would recommend that you have the textbook open next to you so that as you work through other activities, you'll be able to reference it easily. I follow the textbook pretty carefully. So you'll have your reading assignment, and then what you'll do is you will work through lecture videos. These are PowerPoint videos that I have set up that you should be taking notes as you're doing this. Oftentimes students will fill up lots and lots of pages of notes even with just one lecture video. So this is going to be on YouTube, so you can easily just click on it and find it and then take notes as you're going. I also recommend there's a quiz following each and every lecture video. I recommend taking the quiz immediately. The quizzes are going to be worth points, so you eventually want to actually get a perfect score. You can retake the quiz as many times as you want, but you don't have to retake it many times right then. It's actually a pretty good tool to study later on, I think, to review the material before you take the exam, for example. So you can keep retaking the quiz if you want to. But if you take that quiz right away after the lecture video, then you'll be immediately turning that information over in your mind and kind of emphasizing the most important points. Sometimes when a professor lectures, it's hard to actually gauge exactly what was important in everything that they said, and having that quiz right there reinforces all the main points of what I really want you to know. And then lastly, you will have one final video that you will be actually drawing. I basically take about 20 minutes to draw all of the structures that I find to be the most important, and I would suggest that you draw with me for those so that you can practice for the exam. And then of course, you should set aside time to review those notes. Perhaps you want to create flashcards or Quizlets. Perhaps sometimes students will take the quizzes and copy and paste those into a Quizlet. All of this stuff would be good review for you. And then maybe redrawing things, maybe rewriting your notes. You want to have something that is really reinforcing that information. You'd be surprised, even if something makes good sense to you at the moment, you'd be surprised how quickly a concept could float out of your mind without you realizing it. You actually really need to reinforce things on a continual basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in each session folder, you will also find a subfolder specific for the lab. So in this subfolder, you will, like for the lecture, the first thing you will see will be the assignment of the week. After the assignment, you will have part of the assignment. You can have some reading. It is not the same textbook. It's the lab textbook, but it's the same group of authors.
Yeah, it's the same author. Yeah.
So in the lecture, you have chapters. In the lab textbook, you have exercise. So I will let you know which exercise is specific to the lab that you are doing. After, you will have to do some of the work. It will always start with videos. The first video will be a presentation of the information of the lab. This, you can look at the videos, but contrary to the lecture, you are not obliged to take notes because I will also put the slideshow that is similar to the presentation. Other videos could be, for example, with some of the model where we show you on the model the different anatomic structure. When you are done with the videos and you acquire some of the information, you will perform one worksheet. This worksheet, you can take the time that you need. You can look at all the information in the textbook, in the presentation, on internet. This worksheet will be graded. When you are done with the worksheet, you will go to the quiz. In my case, they will not like my quiz. You can do it only once, and it is timed. So you need to know your material before doing the quiz. It's when you will start to be evaluated on your knowledge. Each question will be timed, so don't have the time to look all over. And each question will be only multiple choice type of question. You will find on this folder there is after additional document. Some of them are optional review document. So these are different kind of exercise, like to label a figure, to match a word with a definition. All of these are optional, and if you do them, I did write it in bracket. I want to motivate you to do them. So if you show it to me at the exam, you can have some bonus point for the review document. But it's optional. In addition, you have other documents that are optional without bonus point, and these could be some coloring page, it could be some internet games to try to find some structure, and maybe I find some nice student from last year that can share me their Quizlet. I will see with this one to come. So these are all the information. Outside of all this folder, you will also find in between the session folder when you will have to take the exams.
Yes, so let's talk about exams. So first of all, the exams are going to be pretty different. I think lecture exams and lab exams will be pretty different. But yes, we have them all scheduled. You should be able to immediately see on your syllabus and in each packet exactly when the exams are going to be. We're never going to surprise you with exams. You will actually be scheduling them yourself. You'll always have options about that as well. I want to emphasize, first of all, that we develop all of our own questions. We are developing question banks, but we're not taking them, for example, out of a publisher testing bank. We are developing our own questions. So it will always be pertaining to things that we know that we've emphasized for you. But also, we are developing question banks, so no two exams will be the same. We want to make sure that all students have very similar material, but not exactly the same material, if you know what I mean.
Basically, no need to try to text your friend to know what is the exam.
Yeah, they might be able to give you a general idea, like, oh yes, they tested on the muscles of the legs, but you won't know which muscles. Okay, so when we schedule our lecture exams, you're going to have a total of 5 lecture exams. None of them will be dropped. They will all count for your total grade. Remember, there is no final exam, so I've decided not to have a dropped exam here. They're all going to count for full points. Each of the exams will be timed for 60 minutes, unless you have an accommodation. In that case, you would be given 90 minutes or whatever time period is at your accommodation states. Each of the exams will be 10 questions each. I'm not going to be really worried about whether you're using your notes to take the exam. In other words, you are technically allowed to use your notes. However, the fact that you have 10 questions in a 60-minute time period means that you really only have 6 minutes to answer each question. So you won't have the ability to really flip through everything. You do have to be well prepared and organized in order to answer things. Yes, you can reference your notes. I don't have a problem with that, and I'm not going to try to control that. I'm not going to have a camera on you at all times. However, you would need to be able to basically understand the concept of the question. So this will be critical thinking questions the whole time. I'll also have some opportunities, I think, for you to draw some figures and to show me how to actually draw things, but they'll be pulled out from things that we drew together. This is something I did during the pandemic, and I did not actually see any variability in the grading of students. I had the advantage that during the pandemic, I started off the semester in person, and I had to switch quickly to online in March of 2020. I saw that the way that I was asking questions online and the critical thinking questions that I was asking, that students actually had pretty much the same grade breakdown online as they had in person. So what I'm saying is that my exam actually will be fairly well represented from exactly the kind of a score you probably would have had in person. So it'll be 60 minutes, 10 questions, 6 minutes per question or so. You might answer one more quickly, then you'll have more time for another one, for example. It will be open book. You cannot Google anything. The information that you have must come out of your notes, your prepared notes. And I've caught students Googling things. I can tell when you've Googled something.
We know how to Google, so we know when you do it.
We can catch you. Don't do it. And also, just be careful of this one. If you are studying with somebody else and you have a shared Google document, there may be, and you're sharing notes back and forth, it may feel harmless to you to just copy and paste some things out of that shared Google document. But it looks to me, when somebody does that, it looks to me like they've actually taken the exam together, and it doesn't look particularly good. So please stay away from shared documents, at least when you're taking the exam. Close all that stuff out so you're not even tempted to look at it. Just rely on your own handwritten notes that you yourself have taken.
You will also have some exam for the lab portion. This will be 3 exams and none of them will be dropped. For this exam, it will be on Zoom. So the first thing, you will have some days to take the exam, and the exam are over 1 day and a half. It will not take you 1 day and a half to take it. You will need half an hour to take your exam. You will be on Zoom, and I will ask you the question. So this is timed. You will have 25 questions, and each question is 45 seconds. You will have to show me that, as you are on the Zoom, that you are here, so you will not be able to Google. I will see you and all what you do.
Keep your hands under your chin. Unless you type in the answer, then
Yes.
put them right back.
So the exam will be very quick. The questions are extremely short, or it's a multiple choice, or it's really one word, a name of a muscle, or the name of a board. So they are extremely quick to answer or to type.
So for scheduling a lecture exam, there will be two days when each lecture exam is scheduled, and you'll either be taking it at 3 p.m. on the first day or at 11 a.m. the second day. And the reason I've scheduled only 2 times is that those will be the times that I am committed to be on Zoom. When students are taking lecture exams, oftentimes, for example, they may make an error that they need to correct right away, or they may accidentally submit and then they panic. So this is the time period that I'm actually able to supervise the exam. I won't have a camera on you or anything like that, but I will be on Zoom. You can just click on the Zoom link and find me. I'll be right there. Hello, and then we can have a conversation. We can fix whatever issue. The best thing for you to do is just click on the Zoom link so we can actually have a conversation. So it is only those 2 hours, only 2 sessions, 2 days in a row.
For the lab exam, you will find on Schoology a Google Doc, and it's on the first arrive, first serve basis. So if you schedule it, you might have the time that you wish, but if you wait the last minute, you will have to look what is left. So the exam has 30-minute time frame that you can find. You are not allowed to erase other student name to put your name. So if on the Google document there is not any time available, you will have to contact me, not to steal a time to someone else. And you will see right at the beginning all these documents on Schoology.
So please understand that Professor Botero and I also have busy schedules, and so these times that we have set aside for these exams, we would very much appreciate you actually fitting into those times. If you are looking down the list of exam times and you know for sure that you will not be present for one of them, maybe one exception we could make, we can try to figure something else out, but it would be difficult for us to be able to accommodate lots and lots of changes. We very much want this to be a group situation where everybody is taking the exams on the same couple of days. And part of that also is to make sure that, again, it's that whole time management thing. If you're taking the exam on these 2 days, on one of these 2 days, then you will be able to move on to the next folder without having that overhanging of an exam that you have to schedule differently. Hopefully that makes sense.
And we are not in person, but we are a lot available to answer your question. So the best way will be to email one of us. And again, on Schoology, you will have our email clearly labeled.
If you want to have a specific review session and you just need to answer questions in person, we will be happy to set up a review session for you, either for lab with Professor Botero or for lecture with myself. If you want to get friends together and have a review session, we're happy to do that as well. We don't have anything specifically planned at this time because we're not sure how many students would really take advantage of something like that, and we don't want to try to find another hour or two that works somewhere in there. But if you find that you really need to have that one-on-one interaction, then we'll be happy to do this.
In this case, we can set up a Zoom, so
Yeah.
we can
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it with live
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, I mean, so the entire course is meant to be as asynchronous as possible. But again, you see that the exams, because of the way that we've set them up, and kind of necessarily, the exams are not exactly asynchronous. You do have to find a time to take the exams. We're trying to give flexibility for that, but at the same time, you know, we do want to give you that opportunity for to take the exam properly, and you need supervision to a certain extent to properly take an exam. I will be making a separate video where I go through the entire syllabus. I'm also going to go through all of these timing issues. I'm sure it's kind of hard to picture as you're just sort of watching us talk about it, but I'm going to do a separate video where I actually take you through a screen recording, where I take you through all of these different aspects of the course, just so that you're completely clear. And if you have any questions about any of that stuff, you could just let us know. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's what we wanted to say. If we think of anything else, we'll probably make a second video, but this kind of covers all the logistics of the course and general information, and hopefully everything is a little bit more clear for you, and we look forward to teaching this class. It's going to be a new endeavor for us, and we're excited about it.
Okay. Have a good summer.
See you online.
We stay in touch.